Hello everyone, welcome to the weekly purple penny coin video. Hopefully the sound and everything is working alright today. Not too hopeful about how long the computer will last though, because we had a battery charging issue. It might be time to get a new computer that isn't a laptop to do this, because it's starting to get annoying. My name's Mark. I own and run the Purple Penny along with my wife Catherine, who is outside catching up on the weekend's shipping stuff. The Purple Penny is a small coin shop in the northern suburbs of Adelaide. We've been here for over 4 years, been doing these videos for about 3 years. They're every Monday at 12 o'clock Adelaide time, which is of course usually 12:30 in the eastern states of Australia, and sometime before that in Western Australia. Sorry, I don't know the exact time difference over there. Last week was busy here. We were very busy, lots of buying, lots of selling. Still on the tail end of this last month's RAM release. We bought, a lucky collector had bought 20 RSL cards with red poppies on them back in 2012, ex-service person, and he brought those in. He was very pleased with the amount of money that he walked out with, and it was good quality stuff. They were all the coins that were in bags that were stapled to the holders rather than the glued ones. There's been quite a bit of world gold coming in, mostly from the 1970s and 80s, and if you do follow us on Facebook, you've probably seen a bit of that. Other than that, it was just very busy. So what we'll do is we'll jump straight into the news here. So you probably know that Woolworths released some new coins last week in cooperation with the Mint and Soccer Australia, and they were to commemorate the Women's FIFA World Cup, which is being held here in Australia at the end of this month. There were $4 coins and $1 coin released this week. We'll just jump to that slide. Last week. So the complete set's got 3 different coloured $2 coins with the same, well, slightly varying designs on them, and different coloured rings in the centre, and we've also got 4 different dollar coins. They were released through the tills in Woolworths, not available in a folder, and the $2 coins are being released in a staged basis, with one per week starting from last week, a new one this week and another one next week. All the dollar coins were available last week. There is no collector folder, and depending on the Woolworths that you go to, the way that you get hold of them can be slightly different, but I gather that the usual policy is to just give them out as change through the tills, so you need to actually buy something. But of course, Woolworths being a big organisation, those procedures aren't necessarily applied to. Now, we don't know why there's no collector folder. We don't know why. We don't know what the mintage is. The Mint doesn't seem to have responded to any of that sort of stuff. Now, it's just worth having a think about why the Mint is doing this, and I think it's because it gives them a way of getting some interesting coins into the hands of non-collectors. These people are going to get it in their change randomly, and it's a good way of the Mint of creating new collectors. Understandably, it does create some frustration amongst existing collectors for a few reasons. Firstly, there is no folder. And secondly, it can be a bit hit and miss about getting your hands on them, and sometimes we do have to resort to getting them on the secondary market, which means paying inflated prices, which isn't super exciting. But I do understand why the Mint does it this way. It is a great way of getting them out into non-collector hands and creating new coin collectors. It's a strategy that the Mint has used before. They did it with the Coronation coin. The Coronation coin was created to make people look at their change and create new collectors, and of course that has worked beautifully. So really they're just doing the same thing again. Again, I do sympathise with the people who are finding it hard to get hold of them, but that's the way it is with every release, whether it is goes out through Woolworths or through authorised RAM dealers like us or through the Mint themselves. There is a struggle these days getting your hands on things because, of course, the collecting is very hot at the moment. Right, so just jump back to my big ugly face and we'll say a few. Graham, Michelle, Debbie, Paul, Richie, Peter, Adam, Gary, John, and I'd like to say a special hello to Jason, who he spoke to Catherine last week on the phone. Jason, thank you for watching, and thanks for your phone call during the week and passing on. Patrick, how are you? And Brett as well. Right, is here. So the Perth Mint has released the second program. These are local Indigenous causes in Western Australia, I believe. So that they're releasing this time has a kangaroo on it. I believe the one last year had an emu on. This price is $249. They've both been designed by Kevin Binder. This one depicts a kangaroo, which in the local Indigenous language is a yong. $10,000 raised from the issuance of this coin will be donated to a local Aboriginal charity, and you can just see that that name of that organisation there. All sold out. Spectacular design, reminiscent, I guess, of the that the Mint released before. Quite a spectacular design, and all sold out. Now, thank you to Greg for sharing a story, a massive coin fraud that's happened in America. So, of coin dealers offering investment, coin dealer in America that was offering you could either supply him with your bullion, or he give you a rental fee or a lease fee on that bullion if he could hold, generate income or whatever that was. The trouble was when they conducted an audit on the bullion holdings, so he was holding the bullion for investors, they found that most of it was missing. Now, how much of it was missing? About 800,000 1-ounce silver coins were missing, and 9,000 1-ounce gold coins were missing. So, you know, what is that in $112 million US dollars that was missing? Now, even more disturbing, holdings boxes of bullion. What was in them was handwritten IOU. Companies that this gentleman run were just helping themselves to other people's gold and silver and spending it. So they have been ordered to pay investors back 120 US dollars to investors, and been fined $33 million US, and that gentleman is in jail. So, you know, the upshot from this is if it's your stuff, charge of it, you should hold it, or be in charge of the security box and not allow other people access. Trick, as I already said, the Woolworths coins are only available from Woolworths. We do not have them, so you'll need to go to Woolworths and try and obtain them from there. Next item on the news, there was gold and silver in the news. CBS, which stands for something. I don't know exactly what it stands. Columbia Broadcasting Systems, I think. It's a big news network in the USA, and they had a few articles on, and I thought this one wasn't bad. This was their 5 tips for buying gold and silver bars, and you can see them there. Firstly is dealer reputation, so don't buy them off that. Now, what does that mean? It means checking out the reviews that dealers have, selecting dealers that are members of coin networks or bullion associations or bullion dealer networks, and not buying bullion off of eBay, and not buying bullion off of Facebook or responding to ads on Facebook. So choosing the correct dealer is the first thing to do. The second is to look at the purity of the coins or gold bars that you're buying. Investing in gold and silver, look for pure gold and pure silver. That's not to be. alloys of gold and silver aren't necessarily as acceptable, but there are some exceptions. Here in Australia, around 50-cent pieces are quite acceptable. In America, their currency gold is 90%, and that's quite acceptable over there. But certainly here in the shop, if we get world gold in and it's not pure, we do have more problems selling it because people don't know what it is, they don't understand what it is, it's harder to sell later. So if you are looking to buy gold and silver bars, CBS is suggesting that you look at buying pure gold and silver bars, so 99.9%. Next thing is that they're suggesting is to look at the weight of the bars that you're buying. Generally, the bigger the weight, the lower the premium is that you'll pay. Premium being the difference between what you pay for it and the actual gold or silver price. So it's gold coins, you're much likely to pay. Fourth item, that you buy something that is authentic. So is it real gold? Does it come from a recognised manufacturer? So sticking with the US Mint, the Royal Australian Mint, the Perth Mint, the Austrian Mint, the Royal Mint, those sorts of things. Making sure they actually buy a real product from them. Now, what I don't recommend here is that you listen to how to pick real gold, because there was one thing in there that made me chuckle. Apparently real gold sinks in water, but fake gold doesn't. That is any more wrong. So, if you were to buy gold from us here, for example, we can test it with our XRF gun and prove to you that it is real. If you were to buy stuff from the Royal Mint or the Royal Australian Mint or the US Mint, then you'll get a certificate of authenticity and so on and so forth. And then the last point there is probably the most important one, is what premium over the spot price are you paying? The premium being the difference between what you pay and the actual gold or silver price. Buy gold and silver for investment purposes, then generally, and CBS agrees here, you want to buy it with the lowest premium as possible. Interesting story here with a bit of an Australian twist, and gives you a bit of a background into what note printing businesses do. The Polish Note Printing Authority, which is called the Polish Security Printing Works, is relocating from the middle of Warsaw to a 17-hectare facility, and that's because where they are currently is heritage listed and they can't make it any bigger. They've been in there for 100 years, and they're going to relocate so that they can expand the business to allow for the increased demand on their services from the Polish economy, but also because they print other things such as passports, ID cards and driving licenses, and they actually supply a lot of special security printed paper to other European countries who then use it for printing of passports and things like that. Now, what's the Australian connection here? They license Australian technology for banknotes from the company here in Australia that licenses the same technology to Note Printing Australia. So similar sorts of technological features will appear in Polish banknotes that appear in our notes here in Australia. So that's a local business that has done very well, that business here in Australia. Last story for today. A pretty messed up company, Zimbabwe. We've spoken about Zimbabwe many times before, but it's a country where 74% of employment is informal. What does that mean? It means that I guess you'd call it cashies here in Australia, where people don't have a formal employment agreement, they don't pay any tax, they don't necessarily have an employer, they're just doing their best to get by and earn enough money to survive and feed themselves and feed their families. One gentleman, Noel Ngwenya, he actually buys rejected filthy banknotes that people can't manage to trade locally, so people often pay supermarkets and traders with foreign currency in Zimbabwe because their local currency is not widely accepted. The two most popular currencies to buy things with in Zimbabwe are US dollars and South African rand. But as you can see in that picture there, when banknotes are mangy and ripped up and filthy, then often they are not accepted by supermarkets. So Noel actually goes around through a network of contacts and buys those notes off of people at half of face value, and then he uses his network of contacts to sell those back to the bank, and he makes a small cut out of that, as do people up and down that supply chain. Big trouble in Zimbabwe at the moment is firstly is that their inflation is at almost 90% per year, And that sounds terrible until you realise that last year it was 300% per year, and that corruption is endemic in Zimbabwe. There were stories in this news article about people trying to run businesses and being basically blackmailed by government officials to pay licensing fees, business licensing fees for non-existent licenses, and then being pushed again 6 months later to pay more fees and taken to police stations and threatened with arrest and all sorts of things. So the last point there is something that the article said at the end, is that the dream of many Zimbabweans is just to leave the country. That's their hope and their ambition, is to just get out of the country. Sounds like a fairly appalling place to live. Right, I thought what we would do today is, and just battery life allowing here, I do apologise if I just disappear, I think we should be alright if I wrap this up quickly, is we just look at 4 misconceptions that some coin collectors have and just knock those on the head. First one there, and thank you to someone who commented on a Facebook post this week asking me to cover this question, is uncirculated. This is what some people will say, uncirculated means a coin hasn't been in circulation. Now that is 100% incorrect. Uncirculated in coin collecting term is a grade. It is a description of the condition of the coin. It is not a description of the life story of the coin. So you can get one of these Matilda's $2 coins out of the till at Woolworths and handle it with gloves and send it off to PCGS, and it could come back mint state. It could still be uncirculated, but it has been in circulation. So uncirculated means that the coin exhibits no wear from circulation. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been in circulation. So people who tell you that are quite wrong. They are quite wrong, and ignore them when they say it. Uncirculated means a coin exhibits no wear from circulation. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been in circulation. Second point there is one that we get quite a lot, is that old means valuable. And it is quite funny in the first part of that statement there to think about what old means. I would say at least once a week I get someone sending us a message or standing at the front counter saying, I've got some old coins that I want to sell. And I ask them, well, when are they from? And they say 1984. 1984 is not old. So firstly, 1984 is not old. And even if a coin was old, let's say you get a coin that's 1,850 years old, a little bronze Roman fractional coin, that can sell for $5 to $15, and that's a coin that's almost 2,000 years old. Will sell for $5 to $15. Value is not determined by age. Value is really determined by demand. The more demand that a coin has for it, generally the higher the price is. So for example, last week we talked about 1930 penny, has a mintage of about 1200. Demand for that coin is extremely high. The value of the coin is very high. The 1931 dropped Indian penny, the mintage is probably lower than the 1930 penny, but the demand for it isn't as high, and therefore the price is lower. And compare that with a 1928 penny. Effectively, if it's circulated, it has no particular value at all. So that's a coin that is older than the 30 and the 31 dropped Indian, but it effectively has very little value, less than $1 if it's been well circulated. So old doesn't mean valuable, and old doesn't mean 1984. When someone says 1984 is old, it makes me feel incredibly old, I can tell you that. Now, the third point here is that shiny is better. There is an idea amongst, I guess, newer collectors that shiny means a better coin, and often that means that those collectors are tempted to polish up a coin. We had someone bring in a mule in here last week that had been polished harshly, and the person who brought it in was convinced that it was high grade, and it was very shiny, it was very bright, and it was also horrifically cleaned. And unfortunately, shiny doesn't mean better. You're just better off leaving coins the way they are rather than trying to improve them. Nothing that you or I can do can make a coin look better. It is what it is. So just leave it the way it is and enjoy it for what it is. Last point, and this is probably the most common one that we get approached with here, is that asking prices are an indication of value. We get someone at the front counter with a Bass and Flinders 50 cent. I want to sell this. And Catherine and I look at them and say, why? And they say, oh, because so-and-so on eBay is asking $400 for it. Asking prices are just that. They are asking prices, and they are no indication of real value. Again, real value is determined by demand. No one is going to pay $400 for a Bass and Flinders 50 cent. There is no demand for it, so the asking price is just pie in the sky and has no value, has no basis in reality. Right, that's the topic of the week. Just have a look at a few comments here. Adam says, correct Columbia Broadcasting System for CBS. Thank you for that. Patrick says, so we shouldn't buy gold from African princes. No, don't do that. If you get a message on Facebook from a Nigerian prince offering to sell you gold, run away very quickly. Good morning, Ian. Peter says, I heard at Universal Coins years ago, customer looking at a bucket of Roman coins priced at $5. Customer, do you think these will make a good investment? Alan Flint, well, they've taken 2,000 years to get to $5. Thank you for sharing that one, Peter. It's very true, very true. And Ian says, for point number 5, $2 coins are rare and worth thousands. Yeah, I try to only talk about that 2 or 3 times a year, Ian, even though it is the most common question we get asked here. It's at least 2 or 3 times a week on the phone or Facebook message or a Google message or whatever it happens to be, but I do try to talk about it only a couple times a year because I don't want to sound like a broken record. Now, just on the non-news front, we still don't know what's happening with the Mint release, the next Mint release. So people who are wondering about that, we still don't know. We haven't heard anything. I do apologise for that. As soon as we do know anything, of course, it will go up on our Facebook page and on our website. And that's it for this week. No technical problems this week other than the flat laptop battery, which is, it's almost dead. Thank you everyone for watching. Happy collecting. Have a great week. Stay safe and bye for now.